Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Board of Commissioners meeting. Today's June the 25th, 2025, and I will ask our county manager, Sean Fletcher, to lead us in the invocation.
Thank you, Honorable Commissioner. Let us pray. For the word of God is the power of God unto salvation to everyone that believes in the name of Jesus. Dear Lord, Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this opportunity to be here once again. We ask, Lord, that once again you come and have your presence here. We have a special prayer for our board. We ask that you give them wisdom like Solomon and hearts like David. We ask that you continue to help them come together and continue to serve the best interest of the people they've been elected to serve. We also ask that you watch over our first responders, Lord, those who give everything in efforts to save others. We thank you for the blessings on this county. Amen. I pledge the allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. I'm going to call this meeting to order and ask for a roll call.
Commissioner Buck?
Here.
Commissioner Schroeder?
Here.
Commissioner McDaniel?
Here. All right, first item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item is consent agenda. Entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
All right, is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the elected officials and department heads staff reports. Do we have any elected officials or department heads? You don't have anything? Anyone else? Going once, going twice?
I have something real quick on the
Yes, sir.
reports. Basically, just want to make sure that we reminded everyone that we are updating our core policy. So when folks are sending in messages or requests for information, please be patient as we update this policy. And then also we are entering budget season very soon. I see a lot of staff here. I would just encourage everyone to look at your budgets and start updating those needs that have already been addressed, and also look at what you're going to be asking for next year and what the impact of the budget will be. We are wrapping up our audit, so we should be hearing some results soon from our finance director. And then I wanted to make sure I introduce the gentleman to my right. This is Lance Engel, our new county attorney. So I didn't know if you wanted to say any words or anything. You good?
I'm good, thank you.
All right, we won't put Lance on the spot today. Maybe next time. I think that's all I've got, sir.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, moving on to the next item here is public comments. Are there any public comments today? Yes, sir. Give us your name and address and hold your comments to 5 minutes, please.
Brad Ike, 1110 Legacy Trail, Elizabeth, Colorado.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My issue is about the enforcement by whoever of the service plans approved by the BLCC for Elbert County Metro Districts. I wish to address this issue by talking about the giant potholes found in the road by the Murphy gas station just east of Walmart. The timeline for my effort to get some action on this issue is as follows. April 4th, I sent an email to CLA, the district managers for the Elbert Highway 86 Commercial Metro District, which includes the commercial lots in the area surrounding Walmart. As of this time, I did not know what entity was responsible for repair of the roads in this area. On April 10th, CLA responded to me by stating the Metro District, quote, had budgeted money for road repair. I therefore assumed they were responsible for the repair and it was not a county road. April 25th, I emailed CLA again stating the potholes had not yet been repaired and they could easily cause tire and wheel damage. April 28th, CLA emailed that they were awaiting Metro District Board approval of a proposal to fix the potholes. May 14th, I emailed Carl Nyquist, president of the Elbert and Highway 86 Commercial Metro District Board, asking for an update on the repair status. Also on May 14th, CLA emailed that the board had approved the repairs and they would follow up with me for a scheduled repair date. May 15th, CLA emailed that the repairs had happened on June 6th. June 10th, I emailed CLA that the repairs had not yet happened as scheduled. Also on June 10th, CLA emailed me that the rain affected the schedule. Finally, on June 12th, CLA emailed that the repairs are now scheduled for July 2nd. The potholes have not yet been repaired, and these are large potholes. They are yay deep. Repaired 2.5 months after the request for repairs. Wow, and you can sense my frustration. The point that I wish to make by listing all my efforts to get these large potholes repaired is it did little good, and I knew who to contact. I knew who to send emails to. The issue is the enforcement of the Metro District Service Plan, which is approved by Elbert County, the BOCC, when maintenance of Metro District property is not responsibly maintained. Will a county step in to protect the safety and the assets of county residents? Recently, the county has decided that the PUDs and Metro Districts will have responsibility for road maintenance in many of the new subdivisions, so this may be a larger issue in the future. The issue with the Elbert Highway 86 Commercial Metro District is a little different because there are no residents. Therefore, you must own commercial land to be on the board of directors, which is 60% developer personnel, none of which live in Elbert County. So I ask for your help, the county's help, to go to the Metro District, the Elbert Highway 86 Commercial District, to get these potholes repaired, because I, as a private citizen, can't seem to get it done. Thanks for your time. Any questions or comments?
I got one question. You refer to CLA. Tell me, what is that acronym?
Clifford Lawson Allen.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Clifford Larson Allen. They're the district managers for the Elbert and Highways 86 Commercial Metro District.
Okay, we'll look into that.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Monty Hankins, Elbert County Public Works Director. In regards to the situation that was just spoken about, Public Works has fielded several calls concerning the potholes as well, because the residents think that we maintain those roads. We only do Legacy Circle. We have made, similar to this gentleman, several attempts to contact the Metro District, and I even talked to the original developer of that property, and he then also pumped me to that Metro District. We have had no success either. We have made, I don't have them as detail logged as this gentleman does, but we've made at least 5 phone calls to the Metro District to try to get some response out of them, and we get nothing. So I just wanted to let everybody know we have tried, made attempts to enforce this. I can go back to the original developer and discuss with him if he could put a little pressure on the Metro District to try to see if some maintenance can get done over there on those potholes, if you'd like to go that route.
I think what I'd like to do is get with you and get with our county attorney and county manager, and let's see what, if we can turn up the fire a little bit and get something done, because it sounds like this has taken a very long time.
Yes, sir.
So maybe we could meet, schedule a meeting here before the end of the week and just have a discussion about what our options are.
Okay.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. We're seeing more and more metro districts coming into the county.
Yes, sir.
What is your confidence level that this won't become an increasing problem, trying to get the metro districts to enforce some of these internal roads? We've pushed that maintenance for the internal roads off to the metro district. So my question to you is, how do you feel about that, and what you think your confidence level is that they will maintain those roads properly?
Brad. Similar to what Brad spoke about with this incident, this is not a resident situation. It's more of a commercial lot area, so therefore it's not really formatted very well and structured. Most resident metro districts are formatted and have a structure to them, and the residents all contribute, so therefore there's more accountability within a subdivision versus what's going on here with the commercial lots over there. So my confidence level is very strong. We've had a lot of success so far with the metro districts that are in place, and we haven't seen these type of neglect issues come about.
Any thought on some of the metro districts when they have a commercial component to it? Would that matter, or are they still controlled by the residential?
That's a good question. The only ones so far that we have that going on, I mean, Independence does have like a neutral area, but it's being maintained really, really well. The next one coming up is Elora in the northwest corner. There will be a gas station associated with that one, so we will have to pursue that, see what that looks like.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
And I'll just say this for those that the comments about these holes that Brad's talking about, I ride motorcycles in the summertime, and those things are big enough that if somebody on a motorcycle's front wheel gets in there, it's over. They're going to come off the bike. So it's a pretty serious situation out there. And thank you, Monty. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I see an issue. Typically, when a metro district is formed, they issue bonds. Typically, 10 years later, they refinance those bonds to 30-year bonds. So I see financial issues in metro districts about 20 years in because they're still paying off the bonds, and now they've got road maintenance also. So that's going to put a huge burden on those residents and a large mill levy, and I see that as an issue for road maintenance because they just don't have money in the budget.
Understood. Thank you. Noted. Any other public comments today? Yes, sir.
I signed up on the list. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
It's Steve Beltserovich, 38567 Kiowa Bennett Road, Kiowa, Colorado. First of all, I want to congratulate the new commissioners. I guess you're not new anymore, but Commissioner Buck and Chairman McDaniel, and I want to thank Dallas for his public service. I've been involved in state and local politics for 40 years, and now is the most difficult time I've ever seen to be a public servant. So we appreciate your time and effort. I came to talk about G3, I think, on the agenda today. That's the potential moratorium on growth. I want to thank you for trying to update the master plan. It's overdue, and I think some changes need to be made. I do want to offer a little caution. If it's not narrow and it's not brief, if it's not narrow and if it's not brief, I think it could have extreme negative consequences to the county. My granddad, my father, I'm a third-generation Elbert County native. Private property rights are very important to people in Elbert County. A lot of times the people move from the city to have a piece of property, to have livestock, to have a way of life that's different than the urban counties that are west of us. I believe those vested communities that have been approved by the commission, I hope that platting can continue and that we don't put a stop on them. I don't want to be associated as the next Boulder County of the Eastern Plains or the new Boulder County. That is something that Boulder County continues to live with 30 years after putting a growth moratorium on. This pause, and I hope it is a pause, is coming at a critical time. Just last week, the state of Colorado said there was a 50% chance that we're headed into a recession. I have clients all around the state. I've been traveling since the legislature ended, visiting them. The top of their minds is the economy. The majority party at the legislature, who is usually free to spend at will, are now saying, oh my God, we don't have any money. We're $1 billion in the whole last fiscal year that starts July 1 next week. And they're projecting for the next fiscal year, 26-27, there'll be $1.5 billion. ARPA money has run out. IIJA money has run out. State assistance is coming to an end, and federal government is clawing back money. For example, the new tax bill may eliminate tax credits for solar development and wind development. I know the county has approved one, and there's others under consideration, and that'll put a stop to that, according to my sources, and that'll lead to decreased property tax revenues. I have faith in you. You have a great staff, great new attorney, great, et cetera, and I think you guys are going to do a great job, and I can't think of a better team to carry us through this important time in the county's history. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, any other public comments? All right, we'll close public comments at this time. Next item on the agenda is discussion items. We've got item number 1 is discussion of 2 additional patrol vehicles for the sheriff's office. Commissioner Schroeder.
I believe the sheriff can present to us here.
Okay.
Good morning, gentlemen. Sheriff Norton, Elbert County Sheriff. I assume you received this email before from us stating, and I'll summarize it because I believe you all have the email from prior. 2024, we approached the board and for additional vehicles. We put in for 15 new vehicles. The county manager and board of 2024 allotted us 9 vehicles, which we're grateful for. The things I want you all to remember is these are emergency vehicles. They're used on a daily basis for our agency and our deputies. They go through difficult terrain, difficult weather, difficult road conditions. This takes a toll on our cars. We're approximately putting 30 to 31,000 miles per vehicle on per year. GM looks at the hour rate on the engine, and they consist that with 38 miles per the hour of idling time on the engine. So if a truck has 50,000 miles on it with the idling time on it, you're looking at 110,000 miles. And by the time we request a vehicle in the budget process, the time that it gets approved, ordering the car, uplifting the car, sometimes that could take up to 18 months. We are following the new, I won't say new, but newer fleet policy manual for miling out vehicles. So right now, following the county's policy for vehicle mile outs, it's 4 years, 120,000 miles. Well, I'm here to tell you right now, my fleet, I got 12 vehicles already over that amount of mileage. If we wait till the end of the year, you can add another 3 to 5 vehicles onto that list of over 120,000 miles. So that would probably give us anywhere from 15 to 17 vehicles by the end of the year over the 120,000 mile that the county policy states for replacement. We started seeing the new vehicles come in, the 9 for this year. We've got 1 delivered last week. We should have 1 delivered in July, then it should be just coming in off of that. So, GM notified us when they had an additional 2 vehicles because they had a different agency back out of their contract and weren't able to purchase them. They contacted us to see if we would be interested in the 2 additional vehicles. So that's when we brought it to the board's attention. Hey, we have an opportunity to get 2 more cars, and that's where we're at today.
So I have a question. So let's just say the board approves these 2 vehicles today.
Yes, sir.
How long is it going to take you to get the vehicles and get them outfitted and delivered?
The vehicles would be delivered from, if we got approved today, I'd make a phone call. Those cars would be delivered from Elway Chevrolet to Laws, where our cars are outfitted, and they'd be put in line with all our others. So to give you an exact timeline, I can't give you an exact timeline on how many they'll get done per month or how many, but
Just guesstimate, what do you, a month?
October, November, get them all done.
Okay. All right.
And so you would replace some of these higher mileage vehicles with the two new ones?
Yes, sir.
And so they would go to sale or,
Yeah, we have, and I was gonna ask Ethan, but he's not here. We put vehicles up there to be auctioned off. I don't know what the status of that is. But yes, we would have to auction some of those cars off once we got the newer ones in, take the old ones out of service, decommission them, put them up there for Ethan to put on bid or online, however he auctions them off.
okay, and so we've had back and forth on how many open positions there are in the sheriff's office. Two. Is this intended to be the vehicles for the two incoming, or how are you going to assign these?
It would, yes. So what we're looking at is getting rid of the highest mileage first, because we've already put 2 engines and a transmission in these vehicles already to keep the fleet going. And that's an expense, obviously. What we're trying to do is eliminate the expensive repairs. We've already been commended by GM on how good of detailed notes that we keep on maintenance of our vehicles. To be honest with you, Commissioner, a year or so ago, that detail and the maintenance that we do on our vehicles saved us an engine, because they gave us one, because they knew how much care we take and how much we pay attention to our vehicles. But to answer your question, yes, it would help with those two, because if we were full today, somebody would be driving one of those very high mileage cars and probably, I don't want to say break down, but good chance of them breaking down, probably have to put another engine in.
So you referenced the policy, and I believe the policy is that recommended mileage is when these start to get evaluated. Have these higher mileage vehicles undergone the extensive inspection to see if they're still roadworthy or not? Because that was kind of the intention of the policy, that at that point those vehicles would be evaluated to see if they truly were wore out or if they were still had life left in them.
Yes, sir. Each time a vehicle's taken in for service, they're given a look over, head to toe, front to bumper, to back bumper, and it's their recommendations on major fix, little fixes, and then they are aware of the mileage that's on these vehicles as well. And I believe Ethan and my guy, Sergeant Lamro, they have a discussion on which vehicles and do they want to pump any more money into those vehicles on the repairs. Then we try to work it out where it's not so expensive for us to keep these vehicles up and running. Like the engines and transmissions, right now we're at a position where we don't have a choice but to fix them because we don't have enough to backfill, sorry.
So we instituted last year kind of a rotation plan so that every 3 years or 4 years there would be a total turnover of what your needs were for the vehicles. Would these two be counted like toward next year's allocation, or are these just specifically designated extras? How does this fit into our
I was under
replacement
assumption it would be the extra on top of the 9 that y'all approved in 2024. So we had an opportunity to get the 2 extras, since we're still playing catch up from years ago where we were only given 5 cars and it still wasn't enough because we had people coming in. So we're still playing catch up for our fleet with the deputies, but this is only going to help us get closer to where we really need to be and to get rid of some of the higher mileage vehicles. Why we can still make a few dollars off them when they go to auction.
Thank you. If I could ask Ms. Hermes a couple questions. I know you sent us some information on the possibility of these. If you could just outline that again for public benefit of where this money would be allocated from.
Yes.
And where we're at on.
So the sheriff's vehicles are actually purchased through the LEAF fund, so it is its own separate fund, and their revenue is created from tickets. And we have been doing lease purchases. This year we have been doing just leases for the current 9. So you guys were given numbers on how we could work that with another lease for just the 2 vehicles and the outfitting, or if we were to do a lease purchase. They are fairly reasonable in the amount. It's just determining if we would sell them in the end or if we'd keep them in the end. I do not have those numbers right now with me, but I can definitely follow up with those.
So I don't know, for either of you, which is a preferable, the lease or the lease purchase?
Mine is the lease purchase, sir. Which, that's what we've been doing all up till the last year or so.
I have no more questions.
So, Sheriff, I have one other question. Do you consider the current situation we have now as it could be a safety issue for your officers?
Yes, sir, because some of these cars, and I hate to say it, but they take a beating out here on the roads. Last year alone, I think we replaced 12 radiators. They're plastic. They go on dirt roads. Majority of our calls are, in response time, are on dirt roads, and they are bumpy. And that takes a beating on not only the radiators, the front end, the suspension, and things like that, that we all, we try to baby them as best as we can, but sometimes we got to be somewhere quickly.
I had a question for Monty real quick, just for the record. We've got 1,300 miles of roads in this county, correct? And out of the 1,300 miles, 300 miles are paved. The rest of them are dirt. Is that correct?
We got 1,400 miles of roads, 1,100 miles are dirt roads, and 300 miles of asphalt that are county maintained.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. Thank you very much. Sir, Mike, any questions?
No questions at this time.
Thank you. Is there I'll entertain a motion to move discussion item number 1 to action item.
Yeah, Commissioner, I'll make a motion to move discussion item number 1, discussion on 2 additional patrol vehicles for the Sheriff's Office, to an action item.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is discussion of the supplemental request from ECA regarding the Sheriff's Office radios. And today we have Jim White here, who's over ECA and can give you a little bit of information on that. But just from a 30,000-foot level, I'll tell you that I was at the meeting. There's an update that's coming to our radios that's required. And if we don't get this update, then basically our law enforcement and fire service will not be able to communicate with each other, or it's just going to be a complete mess. So we're sort of held hostage in a way by some of these radio companies. That's my opinion. ECA has going to have to put a lot of money into this, but they also don't have quite enough to cover the remaining balance of what it's going to take to handle this for county fire departments and the sheriff's office. So that's where this request has come from, and I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Good morning, gentlemen. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Jim White. I chair the Elbert County Communications Authority. We're the 911 authority for the county. The brief background of this is that the encryption method that we're currently using in all of our law enforcement and fire radios has been compromised. It's no longer viable to continue to use that, so we are required then, in order to maintain the security of that communications, to move to a different encryption method. Our partners at Douglas County, Arapahoe County, and Jefferson County have established the end of February of next year as the date at which that conversion is going to take place. So we have until then to update several hundred radios for the encryption change. The cost for all of that is a little fuzzy yet, but at today's prices, it's about $283,000. We do expect that to go up because the 1st of July, we've been told by both vendors involved here that there will be a price increase due to tariffs. For the law enforcement radios, the total is about 196,000 of that. We just placed an order for the upgrade for the Motorola batch of radios for law for 74,000 worth of upgrades. So the remaining funds will either be spent later this year or early next year. The reason we needed to get started on this now is because this is a significant logistics challenge to get all of this implemented. There are 2 different vendors, there are 7 different radio models, and there are 10 different firmware versions in the radios. Some of the upgrades, there are 2 different upgrades that have to be applied to every radio. Some of them come as little USB sticks that we have to stick in the computer. They are keyed to a particular firmware version. A couple of issues with that is we know from past experience and what our vendor is telling us, it's going to take about 2 months to get those. We also know from experience that when we get those, some of them will be wrong, and we have to cycle those back through the vendor again. A second significant logistics issue is that for another brand of radio, the portable radios have to have another circuit board added to them inside. So that's open up the radio, put in the circuit board. That's actually the encryption module. So all of that we anticipate is going to take at least 6 months. Our target is for the end of this year. The fire department piece of that is still under discussion. That's about a $90,000 issue, and we don't know exactly when we're going to be able to do that because of the cost. Let me add one more thing with regard to dollars. The question tends to come up, what other alternate sources have we looked at for the funds? With our partners at Douglas County, about 2 months ago, we did apply for Homeland Security grant funds. Typically, the Homeland Security Communications Committee each year has $3 or $4 million that they're able to grant out for things like this. We submitted for about $500,000 between us and Douglas County. About $113,000 of that was just our upgrades. The committee set aside the radio replacement money we had in that. They don't fund radio replacements. That's been the case for a long time. So $113,000 worth of upgrades. We are on the list. We're a ways down compared to their other priorities. The 2 problems with that is, number one, that money won't be available until October. It's the new fiscal year for the federal folks. The second problem is the people involved in that don't expect any of that money is going to come from the federal government. They believe those funds will not be sent to the state this year. That's the DHS piece of that is a total of $51 million the state does not expect to receive. In fact, the folks involved on that committee that are DHS employees aren't even sure they'll have jobs come October. So we will continue to pursue that, and we potentially could use some of that. We don't know what the match would be for the fire department radios early next year. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. I have 5 pages of numbers here if you would like to see.
I don't have any questions, sir.
The number that you're requesting from the county?
I believe the request that we asked you to cover was about $77,000, if I remember correctly.
It was 78,000 and some change. I don't have it here in front of me.
Yep. So what that would do would be to cover the Motorola law enforcement upgrades that we just sent in the PO for, and it would cover the OEM and I'm missing one. There are some radios.
You got
that
the
make
fire
POC,
service
and the coroner radio is 2 radios as well.
So those would just be to cover the county agencies that are using these radios.
I'm sorry, say that again.
This would just be for the county agencies that are using the radios.
That would cover the just law enforcement radios and just the Motorola's.
Okay.
The Kenwoods are yet to come. That'll be later this year. That process is a little bit easier and faster. And we will know in a couple of months what our cash flow looks like and whether or not we can, or when in our cash flow process we can order those Kenwoods.
So you may come back to us?
I hope not. We'll see. I have to tell you, gentlemen, the other elephant in the room is my Motorola salesperson has not yet told me that for sure we will be able to order upgrades after the 1st of July. These radios are 15 years old. They are no longer supported by Motorola. We were very surprised that they were willing to provide the upgrades for us because they no longer support them at all. They may very well cut that off 1st of July. What that does to us is it means we will have another batch of radios we'll just have to replace. And of course, that's a bigger expense. A mobile radio is about $3,100, a portable radio is about $2,500.
It's a racket, basically. It's like your computer. So they upgrade the Windows and so forth, and you have to buy it or it goes in the garbage.
Yes, sir, pretty much.
Okay. Commissioner Schroeder, any other questions?
I have no questions.
Commissioner Buck, any questions? No questions. All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, is there a motion to move item 2 to action items?
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we move item G2, discussion on supplemental requests from ECHA regarding the Sheriff's Office radios, to an action item which should be H5.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the discussion of potential moratorium on development. Commissioner Buck.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. I would just like to start this conversation with saying that I am a property rights advocate, but it's not an absolute right. The right to free speech, for example, you do not have the right to yell fire in a crowded theater. That's why we have zoning laws. We had this discussion in a BOCC meeting April 9th. Then we had an executive session on May 14th where it was decided that we needed to define what a strategic pause would look like, for how long and what would be included. Then we tabled that discussion while we made a change in our legal counsel. So here we are. It is my opinion, along with what I believe is the majority of the citizens, that we need slow and controlled growth. A well-planned community will be something we can all be proud of. It is going to be so much more attractive and prosperous in the long run versus a disorganized free-for-all of development. We are in a unique situation where we can be selective about the type of development and the pace of development here in Elbert County. We also need a zoning map. Cluster home PUDs need to be near towns, not out in the middle of nowhere. It shouldn't be left up to whether a particular commissioner thinks it's compatible or not. It's way too vague. High-density residential on a 4,000 square foot lot, is that compatible with residential 35-acre lots? Could be in somebody's mind. They're both residential. Our planning manager says this is the only place they have worked that doesn't have a zoning map. I don't think it's fair to our applicants, our planning staff, the Planning Commission, the BOCC, and most importantly, our citizens. As you know, we already have 9,300 building lots currently approved, And our current pipeline has another 2,200 currently active applications on that pipeline, effectively doubling, if we approve those, effectively doubling our current population. We currently are already 3 times over what our housing needs assessment suggested. My question is this: why did we pay for a housing study and then throw it on the shelf and not take the advice and just disregard it? I personally want to hear what our citizens have to say via surveys and an updated comprehensive plan and updated regulations before we approve any more development. I have drafted language for a resolution and have submitted it for review to our county, and I'm ready to move forward. Thank you.
Commissioner Schroeder?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I also have some prepared comments on this. I am against any type of a moratorium, and I will have 2 different ways that I'll approach this at. One is from a philosophical position, and one is from a practical position. And one of those is obviously about private property rights and how it affects not just the individual landowner, but the community as a whole. And so we're talking about history of private property rights. I found a paper written by Mr. James W. Eli Jr. Works for Vanderbilt University, and he wrote a paper for Hillsdale College on the history of property rights and the importance thereof. And so I'm going to give a brief summary of that paper, some of the highlights going back several hundred years on the importance of private property rights. So to begin with private property, and that's understood that when you have private property, then that you are able to make decisions about that private property. So when I refer to private property throughout this talk now, that's the understanding that a person should have the ultimate authority on decisions within their private property as part of their private property rights. Mr. Eli makes the point that stable property rights power individual creation of wealth. I think we know that that is very clear, that the number one creation of wealth for Americans is home ownership. So the individual creation of wealth and prosperity and its prerequisites for successful self-government, that we have a strong middle class that's expanding their wealth and prosperity. Second point is that property rights have long been linked to individual liberty. John Adams said, and this is a quote, "Property must be secured or liberty cannot exist." So there's an inexplicable connection between property rights and liberty that our founding fathers found we find in our country. Joseph Story in 1829 explained that government can scarcely be called free where the rights of the property are left solely dependent upon the will of a legislative body, such as a Board of County Commissioners. The fundamental maxims of a free government seem to require that the rights of personal liberty and private property should be held sacred. We were in a hearing yesterday afternoon about the XL power line coming through. I would say well over 50% of the public comment that came during that time was about the importance of private property rights, and their rights they felt they were being infringed upon by what XL was proposing. And so private property rights is very important to people in this county. And when we are talking about a moratorium, in this manner, we are acting as a legislative body or a rule-making body. So historically, how did we get to a point where we feel like first we had private property rights and then we want to restrict them? I'll only go back to when the Magna Carta was written in 1215, the basis for English law. The Magna Carta did a couple things as a safeguard against arbitrary government. If you remember back in your history times, these were feudal periods where the king had sole control over property and could exercise his authority over his subjects. So the first thing that this did is it safeguarded against arbitrary government. First, the king agreed not to take, imprison, disseize a person of property, quote, except by the lawful judgment of his peers or the law of the land. The law of the land clause, this law of the land clause, was a forerunner to what we consider our due process norm. Second thing that this did, the king promised not to take provisions without immediate payment, which was also a forerunner to clause in our Fifth Amendment in the Bill of Rights about takings, which I will talk about in a minute. A few hundred years later, John Locke, in his Treatise of Government, made two specific points. Number one, he believed and theorized the people sustained the government through their taxes and in support of their government in exchange for support of their inherent natural rights. That the government's job was to support those inherent rights bestowed not upon us by government, but bestowed upon us by God, and that it was government's job to protect those. In Locke's view, private property existed under natural law before the establishment of political authority, that those rights were bestowed to us by God prior to any political authority saying that we had rights. It followed that a principal purpose of government was to safeguard natural property rights. And who was the government to safeguard natural property rights from? From government. So there was a check and balance for the government to be aware that their purpose was to protect those natural rights. Now, you may not like that. It may not be something that you want to defend. But I'm old enough to remember in school that when we were talking about items such as the First Amendment and how sacred the First Amendment was and those rights were, that it may be something that I don't disagree with. I may be even vehemently disagree with them on that. But I will still fight for their right to be able to say that, because we live in America and there's First Amendment rights, and everybody should be able to do that. And that's the role of government, is to guarantee that those rights are there. My role as a commissioner, I believe, is also to fight for those natural property rights. During the Revolutionary period, when our country was being formed, James Madison penned in the Fifth Amendment a takings clause. And as I mentioned earlier, it was going back from when the king could not take provisions without giving a fair trade. Same thing applies today with the takings clause. If government rules and regulations create a taking, in other words, remove an economic benefit from private property rights, it certainly can be interpreted as a taking with no just compensation. In 1792, Madison wrote this in an essay. He described such personal rights as freedom of speech and religious liberty as forms of property. Now, this may seem weird to us in our modern eyes in the way that we think, but what it does is it reflects Madison's indivisible understanding of liberty and property. Indeed, he probably identified liberty interests as property because property enjoys a high level of protection. Government, he concluded, is instituted to protect property of every sort. And so in his understanding, it wasn't just on private property, but it was also there to protect free speech. It was also there to protect all these other rights that we have enumerated in the Bill of Rights. If you do a search with your phone or online and put in property rights and founding fathers, you will get a long, long list of many, if not all, of the founding fathers putting together the property rights together with the prosperity of a nation, a state, and indeed a community, of how important that was. Part of what we're also tasked with as government, we've all probably, or many have heard the phrase, a tyranny of the majority, that the majority just overrules and the majority runs things. We are not a pure democracy, because in a pure democracy, the minority's rights can be trampled on. Our job as a representative government is to protect the rights of everybody, even those in the minority, even those that perhaps may not be popular by everybody, but if they have the rights to certain things, such as private property and what they want to do with it, that is our job to stand in the way and say, no, they have the right to do this. Fast forward to the 20th century. Throughout the 19th century, there was a lot of, and Mr. Eli goes into a lot of detail, which I didn't want to go into just for time's sake, long discussion on property rights and how that it was going to work out in the end. A lot of lawsuits, a lot of things going before the Supreme Court, etc. But by the 20th century, we had a concept of groups called progressives. And it's interesting that we have that term, progressives, showing up early in the 20th century, because we still have progressive today that are still advocating the same things. One of the advocations that they had was for a more active role in the state and the federal government to regulate the economy. And they were increasingly dismissive of constitutional doctrines grounded in individual liberty. We've seen those steadier erosions of individual liberty throughout the 20th century. And that led to zoning. The first zoning rules took place in New York City in 1916. And this concept spread in the 1920s, the idea of zoning, primarily by progressives. Zoning was congenial with the progressive fondness for planning and reliance on professionals. They were taking more and more of the decision-making out of the individual and more into government, more into planning, reliance on professionals. In 1922, Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes said the general rule, at least, is that while property may be regulated to a certain extent, if regulation goes too far, it will be recognized as a taking. This is a key clause that we need to keep in mind anytime we think about any type of regulation. Is it going to be a taking from a private property interest? Of course, as we got into the 30s, the New Deal started to take, which was a watershed moment in constitutional history. Impatient with the constraints of constitutional constraints on government power, the progressives with FDR and the New Deal greatly expanded the power and scope of the government. And today, modern constitutional law bears only a faint resemblance to what the original constitutional design was. Now, I am a constitutionalist. I believe that what was put down in that Constitution was inspired by God, and it was the best way that we could, best government ever put together, and especially in regards to property rights. I am not a progressive or a New Dealer. Why? Well, let's go on and see what the practical reasons would be on why we don't want to go down this road. First off, I am a proud free market capitalist. Once upon a time, that would have been sufficient in this county to make the point that that's understood the position of where someone was. When you say, oh, the free market capitalist, they would know what that means. Freedom and liberty for people to choose what they want to do. But if you listen closely now, you will hear people say, I am for free markets, but I am for constitutionals, however. Anytime you hear the but or a however, that means they're getting ready to modify the statement they just had. So if someone says, I am a proud supporter of the Second Amendment, but, or I'm for free speech, however, the next phrase that they have will be to modify what they've just said. So pay attention to that. A moratorium is an interference with the free market. And anytime there is government regulation, it is a loss of freedom and liberty. We have to understand any of the regulation that we impose, and I'm not saying that we don't have any, I'm just saying we need to be cognizant of any rule or regulation that we put in place is also an infringement and loss of freedom and liberty. Well, what are the effects of a moratorium? It's pretty basic. It goes down to basic supply and demand. Supply decreases, prices increase. That's great if you're looking to sell and move out of the county. But if you're wanting to stay in this county, we want to have an adequate supply of housing. Higher demand leads to inflated home values on existing homes, which in turn leads to higher property taxes. And it makes it harder for seniors to stay in their home. It makes it harder for new home buyers to enter into our market here in Elbert County, and makes it more difficult on families. And what it leads to is a community of wealthier, retired folks. We need a range of ages and incomes for a vibrant county. We cannot become stagnant in where we're at. And as far as a concern of rampant runaway growth in the county, we have averaged between 2 and 3% growth over the last 5 or 6 years. I would not call that rampant runaway growth. I've actually had someone in the county say to me, we need to adopt the regulations that Aspen has, because that way only millionaires and billionaires would be able to move into the county. That is anathema to me. That is not what we need. We need to have a vibrant community, people of all demographic and socioeconomic statuses for a vibrant county. We are currently following our current comp plan, which I believe is doing the job that it was intended to do. First off, within there, that the landowner knows the highest and best use for their property. That it's not someone else, it's not the neighbor, it's not the government, it's not the county that knows the best use for their property, but it's that individual landowner should have the authority to use their property as they see fit. Yesterday, Kim Monson testified at our XL hearing. She's a well-known radio personality in the metro area, and she was talking specifically about property rights in this context. And she said basically what this comes down to with property rights is control. Who has control of those property rights? Who has control of that property? Who has control of what that property will be used for? And progressivism, going clear back to the 19th century, early 20th century, is all about control and what people can do. Our current comp plan also encourages large developments in the northwest part of the county, which is where they are taking place. It's following along the lines. A moratorium would hurt workers. All construction and building-related employment related to development would slow down, if not be shut off. Craft companies estimated that currently there are 600 full-time equivalent employees working at Independence. A good number of these are Elbert County citizens. It's estimated that 18% of the citizens in Elbert County are somehow connected to the construction building industry. The ripple effects of shutting down and closing and slowing down what the natural free market will allow will have ripple effects economically for people in our county. A moratorium also puts a close sign on Elbert County, not just for homes, but for businesses as well. Businesses are dependent upon people being able to come to their place of business and purchase their goods or to eat at their restaurant. And this effectively says and puts uncertainty in the future for businesses. Why would they want to come here if there's uncertainty, if they don't know that they can make it financially? So the close sign becomes not just for homes or businesses as well. The county went through this process in the late 2000s and early 2010s of trying to overcome a stigma that the Elbert County was closed. And over that time, we saw what that did financially. When you couple that with an economic downturn and a closed sign on the county, it created a real hardship for the county. The county was basically broke in 2012, 2013, when I first became commissioner. And it took years, it has taken years of commissioners prior to us working very hard to overcome that stigma of removing the closed sign from the county. Now, some say that's good. We want to be closed. We don't want anybody else. We don't want anybody new. We don't want any new business. But I will just say this. It doesn't matter what the organization is. It doesn't matter if you're talking about a county. It doesn't matter if you're talking about a state. It doesn't matter if you're talking about a church or you're talking about a school. Nothing stays the same. It is either increasing and growing or it is going backwards. And while I understand that there is a lot of desire to not change and just keep things as they are, it won't happen. Things will either increase or decrease. As far as our current building numbers, we need to average 325 new homes a year to meet the housing needs assessment number. The housing needs assessment number was set for a number to be through 2032. And our current building permits show us that that's what we will need to average is the 132. I just got a report this morning, and we are a little bit behind already this year to hit what we would need to have for the 325 to hit what the housing needs assessment is. Part of the muddying of the waters that has taken place is the number of homes that have been approved, supposedly approved, and that it's 3 times the number of what the housing needs assessment is. This is skewing the data and making it look as though we will have 10,000 homes built by next year. And that's just not reality of the way that it works. We currently have 2,400 platted homes. Those would be that have gone through the final plat process that do allow for a building permit to be pulled and a house to be built. And that number would put us right on target for our 3,050 homes by 2032. What that does not take into account is any economic downturn, a slowdown where there may be lesser homes that are taking place. We heard the gentleman speak earlier about the concern for the economic downturn that we may be facing, and those will all affect the number of homes. Now, this number of homes that have been approved through a PUD, or just it's been through zoning, is somewhere between 6,500 and 7,300 homes. And all that is through the zoning. It's not been through the final plat process, which will have to come before this board to once again evaluate all the criteria to make sure that they meet everything that we have there for those lots to be platted. And what is often overlooked on these large developments is that these large developments don't just take 10 years to take place, but they take 20, 30, 40, sometimes even 50 years to complete. And so a development that's looking at almost nearly 3,000 homes, no doubt will take many decades to complete. And by the time the last home is built there, the first homes are going to be needing remodeled. That's just the reality of the way it goes. Spring Valley has been going for 20 years and is right now only currently half built out. They just recently, last fall, received their final plat on all of their proposed plats 20 years later. And that is fairly common in where we're at, what happens with the larger developments. There are also economic implications to a moratorium. Obviously, right out of the gate, one of the first and foremost ones that you see are building fees. For however long that gap is, where building fees are not taking place, there's a gap there for the county. There's also a gap in impact fees, and that doesn't affect just the county, but there's different entities within the county that receive impact fees. The sheriff's office receives impact fees. The fire districts receive impact fees. The school districts receive impact fees. And so by us making an arbitrary decision to stop any more building, we're affecting those fire districts and those school districts on money that they definitely count on. And doesn't matter the length of the time of what this moratorium might be, 3 months, 6 months, 2 years, whatever the case may be, it creates a gap in funding that will never be recovered. So many people that talk about wanting a moratorium are using fear tactics for people to gin up emotion. So what is the fear? The fear water? Well, we've done a study, and I won't go into the details, but depending on the aquifer, it showed we have hundreds, if not thousands, of years of water in the lower aquifers. You may disagree with it. Even if they miss with that by 50%, we still have hundreds of years of water. And if you are concerned about water, the upper and lower Dawsons are the ones that have only the few hundred years of water versus the thousands. So what's the solution if water is your fear? A planned unit development. You know why? Because the county has been successful in negotiating with those planned unit developments to go to the deeper aquifers, preserving more water in the Dawsons. What is your fear? A loss of grazing land? That we're going to have fewer acres available for grazing? Well, what's the solution for that? A PUD, a planned unit development. Why? Because it concentrates the number of homes that we need in our county into a smaller area and allows for the ranchers to maintain more grazing land. If we took the same number of homes that we were putting in with one of these developments and spread that over even 1 acre, 2 acre, 5 acre lots, the amount of ranch land that would be taken out of production is exponential compared to what is taken out of production with the planned unit development. What's the fear? Becoming Parker, becoming Aurora? That's what I hear many times. Well, that's not going to happen. There's already throughout the county too many smaller lots of 10 plus acres, 35 acres, 60 acre parcels for us to become a parcel or become a Parker. It just doesn't work to have smaller acreages mixed in between the larger ones to create another large parcel. What are we worried about? Are we concerned about rural lifestyle? What is a rural lifestyle? That's a subjective term. What is a rural lifestyle? To me, a rural lifestyle is how many people live and earn their living on their property. That's rural to me. There's not that many people in the northwest part of the county that are making their living solely on their property. Those that do have extended properties, they're more like big yards. You cannot have production on a 35 acre lot. You have to supplement if you're trying to do cows, whatever livestock you have to supplement. So that's now it's fun. I'm not saying someone shouldn't do that, but let's take a realistic look at that. Another problem with a moratorium is the effect it has on ranchers and limiting who they can sell to. If we're part of a free market economy, why do we want to limit who a person can sell to and make a profit? Isn't that what we're about, a free market economy? A moratorium limits the ability to sell a portion and stay on a ranch. So a large development could perhaps buy only half of a rancher's farm, save his ranch, he continue to ranch the other half, but we're limiting the ability to be able to say that. Is that a taking? It also limits retirement for ranchers. If they don't have anyone to continue, a family member or anybody else that wants to continue with that ranch, we've suddenly told them that all the years of service, all the years of work you've put into that ranch you cannot get maximum benefit from it. So it puts limits on their retirement. That's not being part of a free market economy. Property tax decrease has tremendous effects on the county. It's a large effect if we have a moratorium and then we go into recession. As I mentioned before, what happened 15 years ago was catastrophic for the county. Basically broke. Decreased services. We now have contingency funds, but at the time they didn't. And that was the primary reason that why the county is working 4 days a week instead of 5. There had to be a rub somewhere. The county was broke. I came in on the tail end of that, and I want to tell you, I do not want to go back to that. It was not fun. It was not a good situation to sit around the table at budget time and say, we only have enough money for one new employee for the entire county. If you want an employee, you make your best case, and the rest of us are going to vote and see who gets the employee. That is not a place I want to go back to. Another is the effect on local businesses. A moratorium reduces the number of citizens that we have, no doubt. And so what you're telling me when you say you want a moratorium is you're also saying that our local businesses don't want to sell more goods and services. True Value doesn't want to sell more product. Beano's and Patty Ann's don't want to sell more pizzas and hamburgers. There is an effect on our local businesses. And fairness. How is it fair to the landowner to restrict what he can do with his property? It's not. How about fairness to future Elbert County residents who'd like to be part of Elbert County that aren't millionaires or billionaires but need to start in a place like a Spring Valley or an Independence? It's not fair to them, taking away part of the American dream to them. How about fair to young families? Nope. How about to our lower middle income workers? Is it fair to them to only have high income housing in the county? It is not. I had the opportunity a little over a week ago to attend a picnic that Independence Development put on. And from time to time, I drive through the different developments just to see how that they are growing, the new roads that are getting put in, the new houses are getting put in. But it never really interacted for a long period of time with anybody at those developments. And I'll sort of tell you what I found and what would be something that everybody should aspire to for a community. We got there in the afternoon, my wife and my kids, and we had enough time there to eat at the food trucks and sit down in the picnic area and talk with some of the folks that were there. They're friendly. They're happy to be in Elbert County. They're people just like us. Just because they don't have 10 acres or 1,000 acres, they're people that have the same desires for their families as we do. And as I often do when we finish there, I took my family around to look at some of the new houses and got suckered in, as we usually do, to go look at model homes. And so we went and we toured 4 or 5 model homes. And I found the homes to be nice, attractive, very, very much what I would like to have back when we were raising our kids when they were small. And so what I observed as we were going through that, there was a lot of community. There were people walking back and forth from the picnic and the swimming pool. Young families, multi-generational families. Everybody's waving and smiling and having a good time. As I get older, I appreciate this more. Lots of ladies that are going to be having babies soon. That's a vibrant part of our community, and it's a great thing to see. And I was also surprised because for a long time, I grew up in a subdivision with a planned unit development over in Douglas County. Many of you probably have heard of it, a little place called Acres Green. right by I-25 and County Line Road there. And I never thought that I would ever see a desire for me to live in a higher density place again after graduating high school and leaving that. But you know, when we were touring those model homes, we looked at a ranch home. And as you know, we become empty nesters and the stairs become more and more daunting every morning, I was intrigued by this ranch home. Now, don't worry, I'm not planning on purchasing and moving out of my district. I know I got to stay in District 2 to remain a District 2 commissioner. But from that, I could see the appeal for people as they age to get away from a property that you have to take care of, like I do on my little piece of heaven on 5 acres, right? But I can see now in the future there's going to be a time that I'm not going to want to do that. And to be able to be in a place that has a nice home, that is limited outside maintenance, suddenly I can see that there's an appeal there. And why would we take that away from people? Right now we have really no options for people as they age to get out of their higher acreaged homes, still remain in the county, and be part of our community. So many people that I know personally have sold and moved because there's no alternative for them here in the county, and we need to provide that. People don't want to leave our community, but we need to have alternatives. And so with those, I do not see any benefits to put in a moratorium in. There is limited number of acreages that are even available anymore in the northwest part of the county to be part of a planned unit development. This will take care of itself as we go through the comprehensive plan and new regulations that are undoubtedly coming. But this just sends a wrong message to businesses and developers that this county is closed, and the long-lasting negative effects to it will be hard to overcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Schroeder. I just have a couple of comments here. I think both of you have some very good points, but I do believe the people in this county who want to ensure that we have water and infrastructure in the future for our families, as you've referred to. And I think that we do this by considering a pause on the zoning until we can get our regulations updated and get it in line with what we, the people in this county, want. I don't like the word moratorium, and I don't know that the moratorium is the right thing, but I do think that maybe a pause in the zoning might be a good idea. And I'm not talking about 6 months or a year. I'm saying there's something that we need to do as a county. As the county leaders, we need to step on the gas, and we need to get it done and get it done in a hurry. We need to do it right, but we need to do it in a hurry. With that being said, I think that there's a lot of discussion that needs to happen in the future, and I would like to direct our county attorney and our county manager to schedule an executive session, if you will, so we can have some further discussions on this. All right, thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is discussion on a third term for the coroner and the sheriff. So with that, I'd like to kick that off, if you don't mind. And I would like to say that the previous administration approved a third term for elected officials. At that time, it did not include the sheriff or the coroner's office. And I'd just like to point out that I think it's only fair that we include these two positions in here. And first, I want to talk about the sheriff's office just a minute. The crime rate is continued to be low, and that's not just because there's nobody been here. That's because the people know not to come into Elbert County, and that's because of the sheriff and his team out there. The sheriff's created a K-9 unit since he's been here. He's increased the training. Overall, he's got a very professional department. This sheriff has done this and done much more than what I've mentioned here today on a bare bones budget. Don't you hear what I said? He's done this on a bare bones budget. And there's been times that we've had one deputy out here to cover this entire county, and the other people have had to come in. That's when things were really tough, and I commend the sheriff for that. I also say that the citizens overwhelmingly re-elected this sheriff here at the last election, and as a former police chief and director of public safety, I can tell you I've been involved closely with this sheriff, and he has done a phenomenal job here, he and his team. So why wouldn't we want to keep the sheriff here? The people love him. He's got great working relationships with the, and I know you don't like me talking good about you. I know you hate all that, but anyway, you're just going to have to deal with it. Working relationships with other departments, it's like we had a deputy shot here in Elizabeth a couple of months back, and the other agencies coming in on mutual aid, and just the response was massive. So I commend the sheriff and his department for that, and you've been a great leader, and I'd like to see you get another term. I want to bring up the issue about the coroner now for just a minute. As everybody knows, Miss Sandy's been the coroner along with her husband for basically about 30 years now. They rotated it out, and you just don't have people lining up at the front door or applying to be a coroner or trying to run to be a coroner. That takes a special individual to go out and do that, because it can be a very nasty mess. With that said, she's even gone so far because of financial burdens that we've had on this county. She's even used her property to store bodies out there for years. And so that's something that this board here is addressing as we move forward, and we're gonna make sure that that's been taken care of. But she's done a phenomenal job, and her husband, as you know, has passed on. But together they did a phenomenal job here. But with that, why wouldn't we, I don't think she wants to run again, but if she did or changed her mind and wanted to run again, why wouldn't we let her get on the ballot? It's up to the people. It's up to the people in this county, not to this board, as to who gets elected. But I do think it is the responsibility of this board to at least prepare and get it ready and put it on the ballot to let the people decide. So with that, I'll turn it over to the other commissioners. Commissioner Schroeder.
I'll just give a little bit of history on what happened last year. Last year, the initiative for the surveyor, assessor, treasurer, and clerk came from a citizen following our policy on putting a ballot measure on there. And so I would encourage, if there are people out there that would like to see this on the ballot, to get a copy of that policy and follow that. We just measure the desire for that to be on the ballot. The reason that those four offices were selected to be available for a third term was that they were primarily determined to be administrative. They follow statute, they follow rule. They are not policy driven. They don't make policy decisions. However, the sheriff in particular does make policy. After our lawsuit and the stipulation, he now has even more authority to make policy. So there is a concern there. Where a sole individual has that much authority, even more so in some regards than the commissioners, who have to act in tandem. And so I do have a little bit of concern about that, but I do believe that we need to follow our policy. If there are people out there that would like to see that on the ballot, that they follow that policy.
Thank you, Commissioner Schroeder. Commissioner Buck.
I'd just like to agree with Commissioner McDaniel that in speaking with the sheriff and the coroner, both great people, both servants of the community, glad to have them part of the team here in Elbert County. They do a great job, well respected, a lot of community outreach from the sheriff's office. We'd be lucky to have them for a third term, and looking forward to it. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is the action items. Consideration of the May 14th, 2025 minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Chair, I'll move we approve the May 14th, 2025 minutes as presented and dispense with the reading.
A second.
All in favor, aye.
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 Motion carries. Consideration of May 15th, 2025 minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the May 15th, 2025 minutes as presented and dispense with the reading.
Second.
Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is consideration of resolution for supplemental appropriation to the Elbert County 2024 budget. And you're in the spotlight again.
Morning, Commissioners. Tiffany Hermes, Finance Director. As we're wrapping up our 2024 audit, we did find a couple more supplemental appropriations that we are needing for 3 funds. The first fund is for our Road and Bridge Fund. We are requesting an additional $926,560. That is specifically from lease proceeds from capital purchases. We are working in the future years to make sure that we do have this expense budgeted, so this item should not be considered a supplemental in future years. The second supplemental appropriation we're requesting is from the grant fund. We are closing this fund out, so this money is just to finalize those grants and move any remaining funds to the general fund. The third supplemental appropriation we're looking for is the impact fund. And this is due to our SAA escrow, specifically with Independence. This is revenue basically that's kind of a pass-through that we have to expend. So that's kind of difficult to budget. Therefore, we're asking for that ability to do that, and that's $993,827. Any questions?
Mr. Schroeder?
Well, this is pretty much just accounting housekeeping, as I understand it.
Correct.
But this needs to be completed also before our 24 audit can be completed.
Yes.
No questions.
All right, Commissioner Buck.
No questions.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve Resolution 25 TBD, the supplemental appropriation to the Elbert County 2024 budget as presented.
Second.
Second. All right. Thank you. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is now H4, and this is on the Sheriff's Office vehicles, the 2 additional patrol vehicles. Is there any further discussion on this? Is there a motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the 2 additional patrol vehicles for the Sheriff's Office as a lease purchase.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Next item on this agenda is H5, and this deals with ECA, and this has to do with the radios that we discussed, supplemental in the amount of $78,000. I don't have the exact total here. $78,000 is changed. Jim, do you have the exact total? If you would find it. 78 even would be great. All right, thank you. All right, for $78,000. Is there any further discussion on this? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Chair, I move we approve this supplemental appropriation to the Elbert County Communications Authority 2024, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong one, to the ECA department in the amount of $78,000.
Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the board planning agenda items for next meeting. Commissioners, you have any agenda items at this time?
I do not. I take a point of privilege, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Mr. White, before you leave, this may be the last time that you appear before this board as the leader of ECA. As being on that board for 2 previous years, your knowledge and your leadership in that board has made a difference to the county. Most people are not aware of all the background stuff that needs to take place when they call 911 for it to happen and be able to get help when they need it. And you've been very instrumental in keeping that going. Wish you well in your retirement, and know that I, in particular, and this board appreciate your efforts over the years with the ECA board.
Great job. right, Commissioner Buck, do you have any things for the agenda for the next meeting at this time?
Not at this time.
Okay. And then as far as workshops and study sessions, an executive session, we're going to work with our county manager and our new attorney to get some stuff scheduled for that. Next item on the agenda is executive session. And I'll turn that over to you, sir.
Commissioner, it's my understanding that there have been some complaints and concerns raised about the Planning Commission, and so I am requesting an executive session to discuss the legal parameters of that and the legal options related to that under 24-64024B. That is a session limited to legal advice. As a result, it would not be recorded, but it would be a chance for you to ask questions of a legal nature as well as me giving advice. So I am requesting a motion to move into executive session.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion?
Sure. I'll make a motion that we move into executive session at this time.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
We will recess and go into executive session. Thank you.
That's all. So Commissioners, Lance Ingalls, County Attorney, we have finished the executive session. For the record, it was limited to legal advice on the issue at hand, and I'll turn it back over to the board.
All right, thank you. At this point, we will recess this meeting until the land use hearings at 1 p.m. today. Thank you. Yes, sir. I missed that?
Yeah, 1 o'clock.
Yeah, we're going to recess. We're going to continue this meeting. It's going to be here at 1 o'clock. And then we're going to race over to the